This is the Parra Cave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Parramatta Leagues Club, home of the Eels, and also home of Jack's Pale Ale.
Welcome to another episode of the Parra Cave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Parra Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Parra Cave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and this is the game preview podcast, not the game day preview podcast, because the game is on Friday and this is coming out before Friday, and it is Parramatta taking on Brisbane up at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane in Queensland, and it is round 21 of the NRL Premiership. The Broncos, they are in 5th spot, looking to maybe claw their way into a top 4 position on the ladder. And the Eels, unfortunately, are down in 16th, so they are looking for a victory to avoid the wooden spoon. Now, before we get into the current day's action, let's go through a few stats, as I like to do, because I like going through the sort of history of these two clubs and famous games, scores and players and stats and the like. So, from 1988 to 2024, Parramatta has played Brisbane 68 times. Brisbane hold the advantage, 39 wins to Parramatta's 28. Now, at Suncorp Stadium, where this match will be played, it makes for some very interesting stats, to be honest. Since 2003... to 2024, there have been 20 games. It has been Brisbane winning 10 of those and Parramatta winning 10 of those, so 10 apiece. Now, this is where it's really interesting, to be honest. 471 points the Broncos have scored at Suncorp in those games, and Parramatta have scored 474 points. So only 3 points difference between those two sides in those 20 games played at Suncorp Stadium. Now, the last 10 games between these two clubs up in Brisbane, the last 10 games between these two clubs, which stems back to 2014, it is actually Brisbane 5, Parramatta 5. And look, there has been one game in that last 10 that was played at the Gabba in 2023. That, of course, was won 54 points to 10 by the Broncos. Now, that was the last 10 games played at Suncorp Stadium between these two clubs. It was Brisbane 5, Parramatta 5, and as I mentioned, in 2023, it was because of the Women's Soccer World Cup that these two clubs played at the Gabba, 54 points to 10. I was actually at that game with, there was 29,000, I think there was there at the game. Now, I must tell you, the Gabba is not very good viewing for rugby league. Again, being around a field, it's not very good for a rectangular game. Much like what I say when it is a game played of State of Origin at the MCG. But anyway, 54 points to 10, that was not a good night for Parramatta supporters, that's for sure. Now, some of the players that have played for both clubs include some that have been on the podcast in previous weeks, previous years even. They include Josh Hoffman, Stuart Kelly, PJ Marsh, Casey Maguire, Brett Plowman, and that is it for those that have been on the podcast. But other ones that have been played for both clubs include Todd Lowry, who I believe is one of the football managers or assistant coaches down at the Melbourne Storm. Corey Norman, Joe Offahengawi, who was playing for Parramatta this season, he's now over in the English Super League. Tom Opacek, who I believe is playing for the Redcliffe Dolphins in the Queensland Cup. Reece Robinson, Chris Walker, and the late Carl Webb. May he rest in peace. Now, some famous games have been played between these two clubs, and look, please let me know if you can remember any of these games or any other games that have been played between these two clubs from 1988 to 2024, and let's hope that this one is a cracker of a game as well, and in favour of Parramatta, of course. But 1993... the ANZ Stadium up in Brisbane. It was the opening match of ANZ Stadium up there in Brisbane, and it was 51,517. And the Eels came to town and they spoilt the party, 12 points to 8. And the interesting stat about that one is the fact that all the points for Parramatta were scored by Michael Butner. He scored a try and 4 out of 4 goals as well. Current St George Illawarra Dragons coach Shane Flanagan played in that game as well. 1993, if you remember, was not a good year for Parramatta. I think they finished 11th on the table that season. 1992 wasn't much better either, to be honest. The highlight of that year was obviously the Parramatta Great Britain victory. But that was a great occasion to beat the Premiers up there at ANZ Stadium. I mean, when you've got a team with the players like Michael Hancock, Steve Renouf, Chris Johns, Willie Kahn, Kevin Walters, Alan Langer, Glenn Lazarus, Kerrod Walters, Trevor Gilmeister, and coached by Wayne Bennett, and to go up to Queensland and beat them, absolute blinder. 1994, the year after, was a 16-all draw. That was an interesting game. Now, if you forward to the year 2000, look, if there is any Brisbane supporters listening at the moment, of course you defeated Parramatta in the prelim final there. And 2001, Parramatta got their revenge and beat the Broncos in the prelim final, and it was 24 points to 16 at Stadium Australia, as what it was called in those days. 2007, well, what about this score? 68 points to 22. This game was played at Parramatta Stadium, as it was called back in the day, and in front of 17,000 fans. 68 points to 22. If you can get a replay of this game, it was on a sunny Sunday afternoon. Chris Naninu, 3 tries. Jared Hayne, 2. Ian Highmarsh, the other Highmarsh, got 2 tries. Faleti Mateo, Tamana Tahu, 2 tries. And I think after his second try, I think there was the big basketball slam dunk on the crossbar, I think. Eric Graith, Tim Smith, Chris Naninu, 7 out of 9 goal attempts. And also Tim Smith got a goal. Jared Hayne missed an attempt. Ian Highmarsh missed an attempt. Tamana missed an attempt. So, wow, 5 attempts missed. It could have been 78 points to 22. Imagine if it was that. But yeah, that was certainly a glorious afternoon. 2017, this is my favourite ever Parramatta Brisbane game. It was up at Suncorp Stadium. It was 29,000. I believe it was my first ever Parramatta Eels Broncos game at Suncorp. I've been wanting to go a few times, but haven't been able to make it. But it was this year that I did get up there for that one. And look, it was a classic game. 52 points to 34, Parramatta winning. Semi Radradra, 4 tries. Michael Jennings, 2. Kurisomi Avaa. Now, if you remember, he scored in that game in 11 seconds. It was the NRL's fastest ever try. David Gower, Brad Takarangi as well. Mitchell Moses, 8 from 9. Go back, YouTube it, have a look. Semi Radradra, 4 tries. I think 2 of them are length of the field jobs. I think his best try is probably the last try that he scored on that night. Unbelievable. That was a great night out. That is for sure. 2021, 46 points to 6. That game was played in Darwin. Now, Parramatta didn't have the best of records up in Darwin, but on this occasion it certainly was. 46 points to 6. Micah Sivo got 3 tries on that night. Clint Gutherson got a try as well. I believe that could have been the chip and chase inside from Mitchell Moses, and then Gutho scored, I think something along the lines of that, but also 2023, that Gabba game, 54 points to 10, something there for the Broncos fans. But us Parramatta fans, we won't talk too much about that one. We'll just skip that one. And that brings us forward to this weekend, 8 p.m, Friday the 25th of July, round 21. The Brisbane Broncos taking on the Parramatta Eels. The Broncos go into this game as hot favourites in 5th position on the ladder. As I mentioned before, Parramatta are outsiders in 16th position. And if we just go to a few of the stats of this game, the team stats, well, look, since the NRL started in 1998, there have been 52 games played between these two clubs, and look, believe it or not, it's 26 apiece. So someone is going to go ahead 27 to 26. So look, it just really shows you how sort of, I guess you could say, close these teams are. I think at one stage, you will see the Broncos be sort of dominant and be the bogey team for Parramatta, but then it'll switch around. Parramatta will have an advantage, and then Brisbane will have an advantage, and then Parramatta. But Parramatta actually have a reasonably good record up at Brisbane. They seem to have a lot of fans up there, and they have a pretty good record up there. As I mentioned before, it's 10 games each up at Suncorp. So these games are generally pretty close. A lot of points scored in these games. Last year up at Suncorp, it was 30 points to 24. 5 tries to 4 in that game. Parramatta were actually leading 16 points to 12 in that game at half time, and let that one slip. And the Broncos previously in that last season got the victory down at Combank, 30 points to 14. So the Broncos dominated last year in 2024, got both the wins. This season, look, as I mentioned, the Broncos, they are in 5th spot on the ladder, 5 wins out of their last 5 games. They are also coming off the bye. So just like Canberra for Parramatta last week, Canberra were coming off the bye this week as well. Brisbane are coming off the bye, so they'll be fresh, ready to go. As I mentioned there, Parramatta, 1 out of their last 5 games they have won. They went down to the Raiders, as I mentioned just there before. Previous to that, 32-10 against the Panthers, 34-20 against the Dragons, got a win against the Titans, went down to the Bulldogs. So, look, Parramatta, they have been playing some good football over the last month or so. They just haven't been getting the points on the board to get the victories. Some defensive lapses, and just, look, results not going their way. Like last week against the Raiders, they were 16-12 in front at halftime. Halftime probably killed them, and Canberra came out after halftime. Parramatta did hold them for a little bit, but then Canberra ran away with it. In terms of points scored, the Broncos have scored 446 points. Parramatta 313. Defence is where it's at. The Parramatta Eels have let in about, I'm going to say 96 more points than the Broncos. 462 to Parramatta, 366 to the Brisbane Broncos. Completion rates, 78% for the Broncos, 77% for Parramatta. And the average play the ball speed is the same for both sides at 3.57. So, look, in terms of team stats, that is the way it is. In terms of the team, for Brisbane, we'll go through their side here. We've got Reece Walsh at fullback, Josiah Karapani and Jesse Arthurs are on the wings. Katoni Staggs and Giamat Shibasaki are at the centres. Ezra Mam, Adam Reynolds are the half and 5'8". Xavier Willison and Payne Haas are the front rowers. Ben Hunt is the hooker. Brendan Piakura is the second rower with Jordan Rickey. Pat Carrigan locks the scrum. Billy Walters, Kobe Hetherington, Corey Jensen and Jack Gojeski are the interchange forwards or interchange bench for the Brisbane Broncos. Tyson Smoothie is the 18th player. For the Parramatta Eels, look, it came out when I'm recording this today on Tuesday that the rookie fullback, Isaiah Iongi, will be out for 4 to 6 weeks with a broken hand. Unfortunately, that is massive news for Parramatta, but in other great news for Parramatta, Captain Mitchell Moses is back after missing 4 weeks with a calf injury, so he returns to his customary halfback position. Dean Hawkins gets the 5'8" position, and Joash Papali is in at fullback. So we'll go through their squad here, their team here, that has been named on Tuesday. Joash Papali, Zach Lomax on one wing, Josh Adokar on the other. Will Penasini returns from suspension. Sean Russell in the centres. Dean Hawkins, Mitchell Moses, as I just mentioned. In the front rows, Junior Paolo and Jermaine Hopgood. Riley Smith is the hooker. Charlie Geimer, Jack Williams are the back row, and Dylan Walker locks the scrum. Talon Silva, Luca Moretti comes back from injury. Matt Dury and Sam Tuivati are the interchange bench. Dan Keir is the 18th player. Dylan Brown is in jersey number 22. So initially, when I heard the news of Isaiah out with that broken hand, I did actually think that Joash would go back to fullback, and I thought that Dylan Brown might be a chance of going into that 5'8" position, but Coach Jason Riles has obviously held the trust with Dean Hawkins, who has done a pretty reasonable job whilst Mitchell Moses has been out injured, so he's kept the faith with him and put him in that 5'8" position. Will Dylan Brown play another game this season? It will be... we'll just have to wait and see. I do have a sneaking suspicion that he will play against Newcastle in the last round at Combank Stadium, and I think that will be to thank the Parramatta fans for supporting him whilst he has been at Parramatta. I just have that feeling. I could be totally wrong, I don't know, but that's what I just think. So stay tuned for that one. That's not for another few weeks anyway, but he is in jersey number 22 for this game. So in terms of the referee, and the referee for this game is Todd Smith, Phil Henderson the touch judge, Drew Alterum is the other touch judge, Ashley Klein is the video referee. Now, look, what sort of battles in this game are we looking forward to? Well, look, I guess it could be the bit of unknown between Joash Papali and Reece Walsh. We know what Reece Walsh brings to this Brisbane Broncos side, but look, Joash has played fullback for New South Wales Cup for Parramatta, so it is not a foreign position for him, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes back there. They are not, both of them are not the tallest fullbacks in the NRL, so that may not be an issue. Will Penasini, he'll be up against Shibasaki. Shibasaki obviously playing State of Origin this year. So he will be hard to handle, as will Tony Staggs as well. Sean Russell will have a job to do against him. The halves battle, probably the most experienced players on the field, along with Ben Hunt. We've got Mitchell Moses and Adam Reynolds. Both of their kicking games will be crucial to both these teams' chances of winning the game. We all know Adam Reynolds has a great short kicking game as well as long kicking game, and we do know that Mitchell Moses has that great long kicking game as well. Can kick Parramatta out of trouble, so we'll just have to wait and see how he goes on his return. I'm sure he'll be eager to get back into the action and help Parramatta to a victory. Jermaine Hopgood in the front row, I thought he probably had his best game of the year for Parramatta in that position last week against Canberra. So he'll be going once again. Also, Junior Paulo as well up against Payne Haas. The two big boppers going at it. That'll be interesting to see how they go. We all know Payne Haas has got a motor, and he could play for 80 minutes if need be, but I think he'll probably get about 60 minutes or so. But we know what he brings. He will be obviously targeted as well in terms of trying to take him down without getting the offloads, as would Junior as well. We all know Junior can do a good offload here and there. Really impressed with Charlie Guymer the last couple of games as well. He has gone all right. He scored, I think, a couple of tries in the last couple of games, I think. Definitely scored one against the Raiders last week. So liking his form. Jack Williams, I like him back to the back row. He has been one of the better signings for Parramatta this season. Dylan Walker with his experience. I'm excited to see Luca Moretti come back. Matt Dury, I thought he had a really good game last week against the Raiders. Made a really long break at one stage during that game. Had a quick play the ball for the Zach Lomax try, I think it was. The ball went out quickly out to him as well. Looking forward to seeing Sam Tuivasa get some more game time as well, get some more experience as well. But look, this guy, Pat Carrigan, we know he can be dangerous as well. So it's going to be a good forward battle, I think. Ben Hunt at hooker, we know he can be a bit sneaky from a bit of a dummy half try here and there. So, look, the Broncos, they had a slow start to the season, but they've slowly turned it around, starting to get the wins on the board. It's no coincidence that Reece Walsh, when he came back from injury, that's when they started to win some games again. So, look, he is always one of those players that you need to watch, coming around the back there from the fullback position, sweeping around. So he is one to watch as well. Probably one of the danger players, along with Tony Staggs, I think, as well. So they will be the players that Parramatta will probably try and watch, that is for sure. Look, in terms of Parramatta, I think they need to obviously get off to a good start. They haven't been getting off to good starts this season. Last week as well, it was 12-0 before they started to get on the scoreboard. So they will not want this Brisbane side to get away to a points lead like that. So they need a good start. They need to cut out the errors as well. As well, look, they have young, inexperienced players in their side. So, look, they are going to make mistakes, and that's fair enough, just as long as they can learn from those as well and go better in the future. And look, at this point in the season, I think it will be a good test in terms of getting that experience, and also the fact that they can get that out of their game ready for next season. I just hope Parramatta don't continuously kick to Zach Lomax. I know he's an attacking weapon in the air. We have seen him score tries. We have seen him assist tries as well, but it is a little bit repetitive, and I just hope they can try a little kick along the ground or something like that, because it's just too predictable, I think. But I do know that he is an attacking weapon. Look, in terms of a score, what are we going to see here on Friday night? Look, I think... Look, I am a little bit... Look, Brisbane could win this game. They are the favourites in this game, but look, listening to me, you know I'm going to tip Parramatta, and I think they can get this victory. The big inclusion of Mitchell Moses is a big one. Look, I'm going to say something like 28-26. Parramatta get this win, only just. I am going to say that on his return, Will Penasini will be the first try scorer, and I am going to say, as a bold prediction, I'm going to say that Parramatta will be winning at half time. Brisbane will come back in the second half and lead, but then Parramatta will get the lead and win the match. There you go. How about that one? Now, just to let everybody know, I will not, unfortunately, be up in Brisbane for this game. I love going up to Brisbane to see my Queensland Rugby League family. Unfortunately, I won't be up there this year for this game. I'm really disappointed about that one, but I will be back up there next year for it, definitely, and I'll be up there for Magic Round next year, but I'm disappointed that I won't be there this year for this game. I love catching up with my Queensland Rugby League family, including Lou, Kathy, Jess, Jamie, Jasmine from Watch Your Team up there, and going to the Lord Alfred Hotel as well before the game. Now, I do believe there is a members event up there, members and fans event at the Lord Alfred Hotel for Parramatta before this game as well. So keep your eyes on the socials for that one. So I'm going to miss that one, unfortunately. But that, I think, is it for this game preview. Parramatta and Brisbane. Look, I really hope Parramatta can get the win and give them some confidence going into the back end of the season to finish off the season strong. I know that they love playing up in Brisbane. They've got the good record up there. I think they can do it. So stay tuned next week for a game review podcast as well. But thank you very much for listening to this game preview podcast. May the best team win, and may that be the Parramatta Eels, the Parra Cave podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Parra! Dylan, how you going, mate? Are you a Parra Cave podcast listener?
I am, bro. It's a great podcast. Everyone tune in.
Go Parra.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Parra Cave Podcast. See you next time.